Dad was a very humorous guy. I think all would agree here in this hall. In different stages of his life, generally very funny, very full of humor, kind, loving. I took about 3 days as we first get to know about Dad, and took 3 days to actually digest. And this whole morning I was also thinking about the eulogy. I think just a small request that I don't think we should be too saddened with Dad's passing. I think Dad wants to see all of us smile here. I will try my best, put in a little bit of names here and there, because Dad really dearly misses some of you, and he always speaks of you, and everyone seated here in this place, you somehow or rather crossed paths with him, had a bit of relationship with him, and so I might take a bit of time, but Dad has lived a very, very good 74 years. Henceforth, this long trail right here is worthy to be shared, right? And also because I'm the only spokesperson in my family, the only child, and so I think it's worthy, right? Just to share a bit about my dad. Yes, full of humor. He likes the color blue. Henceforth, you see one and I here today in blue, using his handkerchief. In terms of family history, right? My grandfather, his dad, he had 3 wives. Okay, this was back in the day where you can have 3 wives. Okay, it was like no papers, no search, no lawyer there. Okay, all you do is just I love you, I love you, I love you. That's what he did. That's what he did. Okay? It's okay to laugh, you can laugh, because Dad wants fellowship like this, right? He had 3 wives, which actually springs out 3 bountiful offspring. It's a lineage of 21 children. Okay, some of my family members here can count on that. Dad was actually under the second mom, which is my grandma. They have actually like a platoon management, you know, because too many children already. So every 4 of them will be 1 platoon. Okay, and my dad is actually one of the ones behind, because my 8th aunt, my dad is number 9, my 9th aunt and my 10th uncle. Okay, my 10th uncle is also here today. 4 of them were in 1 platoon. Okay, somebody make a mistake, all 4 kena. That was my grandma's style, right? And so you can probably tell, even though they were in separate platoons, sometimes they still, you know, cross paths and go to the river and swim and catch fishes and things like that. My dad really likes to go up the mountain and hike just to look for that weird spider that fights with one another. And then he would, at a very young age, he already started being a salesman. He sells those spiders. He will con people and say, "You can fight one, can fight one, really can fight." So you understand the mechanics of this siblings love, right? And he came from, he was born in Tapa. He was practically raised a lot of time in Ipoh. And when Dad grew up to be a young, fine gentleman, most of his siblings already have kids. Okay, most of them have children, and yes, obviously they are my cousins. Dad took care of most of my cousins because he was still a bachelor, he was young, and so my dad's siblings, they all had children, they were all my cousins. Some of them are here today. Please don't ask me how old are they, alright? Dad always remember there's a lot of you actually, Akio, right? Aheng, On, 3 of you constantly jump on his bed. 1 of you broke his bed, and he will always share with me that story for multiple times, especially when you all come for Chinese New Year visit. Right, then in 8th uncle's house, there's Popo, Oli, Kinman. 3 of you can really cry. Cry when Papa and Auntie wants to go and watch movie. Guess who's the babysitter? My dad. Again, my dad. So he was always telling me, 3 of them can really cry. Cry so hard until he don't know what to do for hours. They can cry and cry and cry. So my dad is not typical, right? He's full of humor, right? So he will prank them. Cry some more, you cry some more. I put sweet chili on your finger. Then they eat the finger, then they cry again. Cry some more. When then all three of them got tired, then only they go to sleep. When they go to sleep, that's where my uncle and wife comes home. And that's like, you come here earlier, can not? That kind of thing. And then obviously he also moved to Cameron for a while, I believe. That's where he took care of Asing, Peng Lee, and Patrick Keith. Right? So over the years, we also had a lot of fond memories. Zoe and Zelia, already around my age, but they call me uncle. Yeah, so they're not that old. It's just me. Okay, fine. Now, fast forward. Pretty interesting year, 1988, 1989. So you look at my dad's name, right? Mr.Low, right? Gong Wah. So when Gong Wah likes to save money, what will he do? He will look for a bank, correct? He will put his money there, put a few fixed deposit, and when he chooses to do it, Gong Wah will frequent Gong Yik Bank. And there's a reason for it, because mom was working inside there. Those people who blank out when I mentioned Gong Yik Bank, right? Obviously you're not that old. Today Gong Yik is being already absorbed by RHB. Okay, so he frequents Gong Yik Bank just to go and put fixed deposit. And long story short, dad married mom. Dad and mom then started staying in my mom's second sister's house in Cheras, my second IE in Cheras. And so it is always worth mentioning that in that house I spent 3 years there. My dad and mom spent maybe 5-6 years there. And some of the photos you see earlier during the slides, my cousins are also here, Hao Hao and Nanyang. And Nini also. Nini came after me. So we stayed in the same house for a couple of years. Then that is really where it was all before church. There was just a few, 3-4 good years of my childhood, right? And right. So after Cheras, a lot of things that Dad still likes to eat, right? But he will often tell me he officially banned banh mi. Officially. I don't care, you put it in a soup manner, you put it in a dry manner, mala manner, herbal manner, you put it in all kinds of tom yum manner, it doesn't matter. Dad will always tell me he officially finished his whole life's quota of banh mi in Cheras house. Because mom's sister will always cook banh mi. Don't know what to eat, banh mi. Don't know what to eat, banh mi. The meat one, the thick one, the thin one, the don't know what kind of stuff my auntie did until my dad, until today, he hates banh mi. That's why every time you ask to go to Chaoyang, guys, it's not because I don't want to go. Dad really finished his quota already. Okay? And I really hear him say that a lot. So generally, yes, I did have a very superb childhood. Growing up with Dad, he was always a consistent provider. His concept of providing is always one meat, one veggie, soup, egg or tofu. Up to mom, right? Because mom is cooking. So yes, for the past 32 years, it is always that manner. There's always protein, there's always veggie, there's always soup and egg. If you think simplistically, that is something worth noting. Yes, you can be rich at this moment. Yes, you can be poor at this moment. But could you have done it Mr. Low's way? 30 years of consistently being a provider, never a bum, and he's just there providing for my family. He stayed in his sales rep job for more than 20 years in one company. I cannot imagine that. I've been working for 9 years now. I think I changed almost 5 companies. This is something that I never learned from that. He was a sales rep for more than 20 years in a single company, and of course he spends ample time with me. Badminton was our craze. Badminton was in our blood. Every day I look at the racket, I look at him. Badminton was in our daily, weekly routine. I remember there was one particular time, I didn't know how to play quite well yet at that time. I was probably 7, 8 or 9. He would take me to Stadium Kelana Jaya. Not inside the stadium, outside the stadium. Then we would start, having some few strokes there, just playing half an hour. After a few years doing that, I go to Dad. I say, Dad, why you don't rent a court? Very cheap last time. The BBJ court was a few ringgit only, right? Why you like to play outside the stadium? Son, you don't understand. Number one, there's shade. Because it's a stadium setting. Wind not so strong, so the ball won't simply fly. And number 3, parking there free. That is Mr. Low. That is Mr. Low. We had a lot of random New Year Eve drives every year. When I was a kid, I always remember New Year's Eve, son, wife, let's go. Drive throughout Klang Valley, and then just find a random mama, just sit there, have our teh tarik. If there's fireworks, there's fireworks. If there's no fireworks, you say, yeah, fireworks not free, man. That was a very simple traveler. He doesn't travel much. He hates vacation. The only place he likes to travel was Ipoh. You know why? If I say I want to go Penang, he will say KL got char kway teow. If I say you want to go Johor, he say KL also got beef noodles. You need to pay petrol, pay toll, pay wear and tear of the car, everything. Don't need lah. Just eat in KL. It is one of the photos you see there. Very, very young look of my mom and dad. That was his only trip, I believe. Right, Mom? I think that's honeymoon. That is in Indonesia. That is like, again, his whole life's quota already. Now, of all seriousness, I really want to take time to talk about his salvation. This is really something that Dad don't really dare to share with most of everyone. But I understand very clearly, this is a token that he hides in his heart, that when you talk to him, if he shares it with you, you will understand why he chose to do certain things. That salvation is pretty unique because we've been in the same church, same fellowship church for the past 28 years. He doesn't believe in hopping. He doesn't believe in many pastors, frankly speaking, and henceforth we just stay put in this church. As far as Mom and I know, majorly he backslided twice. The first time was him being a bachelor. He really dropped his salvation. He came to KL, looked for work, and yes, that was the upfront one. He didn't just bother about his salvation. He was just working around KL. 1995, one fine day, very random day, I was just 4 years old. He saw the pamphlet, I think, or he saw in the newspaper, Potter's House in Mayang Industrial Park. He sincerely think it was a coffee house. Or at least he was trying to con Mom and myself. I don't know. I was just 4, right? And it turns out, when we went to that coffee house, there was a revival service going on. And then Dad, he dedicated his life. Mom got powerfully saved. I was thrown into Sunday school. So Dad was on fire. Dad was on a very passionate note. I remember him and Uncle Tommy and Uncle Wong and several, Posey is here today as well, several old saints. They would constantly go out. And they even went to hospital to pray for people those days. And he was the one that is shooting Mom all the time. Why are you at home? Go lah, tell someone about the gospel, blah, blah, blah. He was so, his fire was reignited, right? And just few years after that, in Y2K, year 2000, where most of the world were concerned that the world was ending, unfortunately, also on a smaller scale, we did have a crisis in our church that time. I'm not going to go through details because we were not involved directly in what happened. But what I can share with you is Dad's heart was completely broken. He became very bitter. He backslided for the second time for real this time. He became very skeptical. He's a pessimist then. He was against whatever my mom and I was doing. He's angry. He doesn't trust anyone anymore. And at a certain point of his life, he was dissatisfied with almost everything and everyone and anybody. That includes my mom and I. So for years we were struggling, and mom just kept praying, and just kept praying. I also fasted here and there, praying. Sometimes even green peas look very, very nice to me, even though I don't like it. And we struggled for that kind of life, ding dong here and there, for almost 9 years, I believe. Then in year 2008, I had the biggest fight with him. That was the case because he didn't allow me to go to India for church conference. Just a few hundred ringgit I asked from him. He said, I don't have much money, stop asking me, it's not good to go. The argument was so brutal, at first it was humorous. He would say things like, you're Chinese lah, go to India for what? Go to China lah. Then I spoke back and said, that time China no church man, China also no conference, how to go? I want to go to India. The pastors there all inviting me. Actually they didn't invite me. I just wanted to go. Because Gerard keep asking, right? Like peer pressure kind of thing. You want to go lah. Then don't want to give money. Then mom was a bit tight. Mom was already a housewife back then, so that didn't go through. The argument was very brutal. I specifically wrote this down. The argument was so brutal. We shouted without holding back. We were just throwing words at each other. We scarred each other. And when I couldn't help back at that time, that was the worst thing I ever said to my dad is that when I become an adult and get out of this house, I'll never want to be like you. That was the most hurtful thing I think any dad could receive from his only son at home. And I was naive, I was practically stupid, and just maybe months or a year after that, 2009, Dad had 3 arteries blocked in his heart physically, and he did proceed with surgery. Pastor was there for him, mom was there for him. Some family members actually speed their way down to actually look after him and things like that. But it was 2009. After years and years of praying, him backsliding the second time, Dad finally came back to Christ. It was 2009. His heart got healed. His physical heart got healed first, then his spiritual heart also got healed. He recovered. He lived on consistently in the ways of God in his own simplicity. Over time, we also reconciled, and we actually grew back our love together as father and son. So in church, there are also a few notable names to actually note. Joel, Dad always say he's darn proud of you, of whom you are and how far you became. You were another son that got conned of the pasar pagi rendang and curry we always cook for you. Jerry, Dad will always remember you took his 50 cents and bought not only plasters for your cuts and wounds at Klana Putra swimming pool, but you also bought sweets. Carmen, Carla, and Ina, you were in Sunday school group as I am. Dad consistently prays for your well-being. You were daughters that he never had, and he is delighted of your marriages and your kids. Other names like Devon, Mikhail, there's Tomlin, there's Keith, and all these names. Dad will always check in with me. And if I'm not checking in, it's again on me. Okay, let's fast forward. 2014. I'm almost there. Okay, give me a bit more time. 2014. Vivian appeared in our lives. Dad and I were already in very good talking terms. Gentlemen, we even talk things that Mom doesn't know. Vivian is respectful, that's what he said. Vivian is well-mannered. She likes fruits. And during my birthday dinner, there was one time, during my birthday dinner, she scientifically dissected the fish on the table for everyone to eat. After that night, Dad says, "This lady, okay." Did I hit? Approve? So several months later, 2015, we tied knots. Our marriage was really a miracle. It was based on counseling. It was based on our attraction for each other. We had plans. We had purpose. One of the most heart-touching things that Dad has ever done during that year was he stood behind me. When my friends, even some relatives, I dare say, when some of the people I know, when I announced my marriage, first thing they ask, accident bro? Are you pregnant bro? I say no, you watch and see. We are clean, we are right in the sight of God, we have plans. I don't need to explain to you since you don't want to understand. It's fine, we'll go on with our marriage and look now down the road where we are. Right? And when we tie knots in 2015, Dad officially took her in as his own daughter. Again, it's also from our church that we don't believe in in-laws. The term in-law is strictly prohibited and as instructed by my dad. Never call her an in-law, never treat her like an in-law. She's my daughter. And that is why he always cuts fruits for her. Because I don't like to eat fruits. As this is being recorded as well, for future Kyler. Yeye is delighted of your arrival from the news of you being in Mom's womb during pregnancy, all the way up to today. Yeye has shifted all his attention and main drive of child love towards you, his grandson. Although he is saddened that he couldn't carry you all the time because his hands are weakened in this 1 year and you had to go through Kawasaki, but your smile and cheekiness has always cheered him up this past 1 year and 3 months, instantaneously. Mom, Dad's intimacy and relationship with you will be a bare minimum of my household leadership from now on. You have Dad's confidence that I will be thanking our family in the name of Christ. Please check in with dear pastor in case I exhibit a bit of symptoms of rebellion against you. Dad will always be in our hearts. That is for sure, Mom. And he has officially ended the need for medicine, pills, and insulin jabs. Enough is enough. 40 years of meds, 5 to 6 years of insulin jabs, that is enough. And we want to thank God today for all that He has done for him and us. And lastly, to the floor, since you are here for this big service. This past 13 to 14 years, besides enjoy going to church and being around church people, my dad has never stopped witnessing. When I was pioneering in Banasri Damansara, he constantly shared the gospel and tell how church people are good friends with him. In hospital just last week on Monday when my dad was hospitalized. When I arrived on Tuesday, when I was arriving the ward, just walking through the corridor, I overheard him. he was like having a party with the 2 ward mates there. They were, 3 of them were like that, but they were laughing. They were laughing. I overheard him saying this, that he is happy because he goes to church, and both of you folks should also find a church too. That is a testimony. And obviously when I arrived, then he said, yeah, that, my Indian come already. Just a few pointers before I end this particular eulogy. These are favorite quotes from my dad. I put it down graciously and I need you to listen very carefully because it might contain a bit of life lessons. Fixed deposits are very important if you want to find a life partner. Dad always say this to my cousins, and I always hear this a lot. Don't get married for the sake of getting married. He lives to eat, he don't eat to live. That is his version of YOLO. Dad always say, money is not everything. Before you buy something expensive, think in a manner, how many plates of chicken rice can be exchanged for others' livelihood? This happened actually when I was a teenager. I wanted to buy a 400 ringgit shoe. Straight away said, that's 80 plates of chicken rice. As a man, as a young man, he always tell me, scars and wounds are manly. Please don't cry like a sissy boy. And lastly, he always say this, Jesus is not my crutch. He is my God. Wow, I love you.